Hello everyone! Unfortunately, I don't have any of my regular videos ready for this week, so I thought for today's video I'd showcase a collection of clips from my most recent live stream, where I get the 2007 Subaru Impreza back up and running. This video isn't up to the same standard as what I usually post, as again, this is taken from a live stream, but I think many of you will still enjoy it, so I thought I'd post it here on the channel. I plan on doing more live streams, as well as posting some highlight videos on this channel. However, for those of you who enjoy the more highly edited and produced content that I normally post, don't worry, none of that is going away. Next Friday at noon I'll have another build video going up on the channel. These live streams are just something extra and by no means are going to become the new norm. Just something a little different that I know some of you will enjoy. With that said, I hope you all enjoy this video and stay tuned for some upcoming videos and live stream content as well. So the other day I decided to work on the 1/10 scale 2007 Subaru Impreza I built a while back. It's sitting on top of a fully 3D printed all-wheel drive chassis, and I built it to be sort of a SCCA rallycross style car. I therefore named it the Subaru, though as I often do I ended up making the car more scale than I initially intended, adding inner fenders, mirrors, a rear diffuser, and other accessories. So it might not be able to fully live up to its name without leaving a trail of parts. But call it whatever you like. My only intention with this build is to have a fun to drive car that can go on pavement or some light off-roading like what you'd encounter on an SCCA style autocross course. The car has been a little neglected as you can see and needs a bit of work to get it going, so let's dive right in. Alright, so a little bit of a jump here, but as you can see, I've done quite a bit of disassembly. I've got the motor mount out, got the drive shafts out, and I've been doing a bit of brainstorming. As you might recall, I had it was a nice enough setup. I had this motor mount enclosure here. The motor would attach right here, the two gears, sat in the chassis, but one of the issues was it kind of sat off center. So the drive shaft, it was not perfectly straight. It was off to the side a little bit. Just so it would fit in the chassis. And that it caused quite a bit of vibration, wasn't really ideal, might be putting a little bit of strain on some stuff. So what I actually want to do, I really want to simplify it. I just want to run a drive shaft from here to here. It's one solid 3D printed piece. I did consider cutting a section of steel rod to use as the drive shaft. However, I would need to glue on some sort of dog bone end, something to fit into the socket here. And I'd also have to glue a gear on, which, there's a lot of good strong glues, a two-part epoxy, but there's some potential there for that to come loose. But also, I want to see what I can do with just as much being 3D printed as possible. This isn't something I'm going to run super hard. So we're going to see how it holds up and go from there. One option as well, if I wanted to again go with the 3D printed center drive shaft route, is I could make it hollow, so a smaller diameter steel rod like this could be put inside, which would give it some rigidity, and it is an option as well. So again, one solid center shaft from here to here, and as a part of that I'm going to have the drive gear. One thing I need to figure out is how large I can make that drive gear. So I need to measure from the floor of the chassis. Let me get this motor out. Measure from the floor of the chassis to this upper support here. So the largest diameter I can make about like 40 is what it's looking like. I'd say about 38 millimeters is going to need to keep the diameter of that gear that's going to be on the center drive shaft. 38 millimeters is going to be about the maximum diameter that's going to fit between the upper support and the floor. So 38 millimeters. And again, what I'm thinking, got that center drive shaft. Please pardon my crappy drawing. So we got our center shaft, right, with the like the dog bone ends. So for the half shafts, oh, let me adjust the camera just a bit. There we go. Hopefully you can see this a little bit better. What I was saying is for the half shafts, these, I don't know, protrusions, these little nub things right here, these are metal. What I did was I've got the 3D printed plastic, and then I used a little dowel pin. So these are a lot stronger than the plastic ones on the center shaft. I was thinking about making these, doing the same thing there, instead of having these parts right here, these sections that stick out, 3D printed as a part of it. Instead, making a hole in the 3D printed part, having a hole in the 3D printed part and sticking a dowel pin through there, so it would be a lot stronger. But if there's going to be some part of the driveline in this car that's going to break, I would much rather it be the center shaft. I would almost kind of like, if possible, this to be the weak point, you know, the center shaft, because that would not be overly difficult to replace versus if it's something internal in the differential or the half shafts. I don't know, it was just a thought. Again, this isn't something I'm going to be running super hard. I want to make this as thick as possible, this shaft here. I'm going to give it some more strength. Of course, I can always put something inside there. I'm thinking, just like with this, I don't know, as you may recall, this was actually printed in 2 pieces and then glued together. It makes it a lot easier to have a nice flat surface to print on and glue the 2 together, rather than printing it like this and having all of this overhang. So I'm going to split the model right down the center and print the upper and the lower separately. Have a nice flat surface. And as a part of that, I'm going to have somewhere the drive gear. So this is if you're looking at it from the side of the car. Again, my apologies for the quality of the illustrations here. So this is going to be just a simple 2 pieces printed and then glued together. So that's all there is for the center shaft. That's all I'd like to do. I'd like to keep it this simple. I might need to have some sort of like carrier bearing or something somewhere along there. If it flexes a little bit, so be it. But we'll see. I might need some sort of carrier bearing or something in there. I think we'll try without to start and just see what happens. So let's talk a little bit about the gears. So before, I was using resin gears. They held up just fine. The problem is, and the reason I've torn this car down, is when I was testing it earlier, the shaft of the motor shaft, was spinning inside of the gear. Obviously, if the motor shaft is spinning inside of the gear, it's not turning the gear, it's not rotating the wheels. It's no good at that point. So one solution would be to put on your standard metal pinion gear. That would eliminate any issues of the motor shaft spinning inside of the gear like what we had with this. You know, the motor, it heats up, and the plastic, the resin in this case, gets softer and it just starts spinning on the inside. It's no good. The problem is I would have to design a gear to match, that would mesh right in. And I really want to make both of these gears, rather than 3D printing using resin, I'd like to do it on an FDM printer. And those are some small teeth for an FDM printer. So I'd like to make them a lot larger, the teeth a lot larger specifically. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the FP-UC1 chassis, the 1/24 scale. I used it for a number of builds. It's just got like 6 really big teeth on it. And yes, it's not the smoothest or the quietest setup, but it's super easy to print and it works. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to be designing and 3D printing both the drive gear and the pinion gear. I'm going to try to make the inner diameter of that pinion gear really tight and actually hammer it onto the shaft like a press fit. Hopefully don't damage the motor. It's just a Tamiya can motor. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. There is a flat spot there. Yeah, just kind of smash it on and hopefully it's tight enough that it doesn't end up, the motor shaft doesn't end up spinning inside of the gear. I think what happens is this shaft and the motor gets hot and it kind of melts the plastic a bit. So I think I'll use designing a drive gear to mesh in to this gear here. I think I'm going to do that as like a plan B because that's going to be a little more work to design, and I'm not going to be able to FDM 3D print a gear with that small of teeth, I don't think. So I've got to get the sort of the size ratio just right, because I don't want the motor to sit too close to the center drive shaft, because I want to make that drive shaft as thick as possible. So I have to keep that in mind with the gears. So the motor is going to be able to sit far out enough to not interfere with the drive shaft. I'm really not concerned about the gear ratio. I mean, even if it was just a 1-to-1, it might be a little rough on the lower speeds. It might be a little harder to get going, but it'll still work. There's plenty of power in here. It's just a pretty lightweight 3D printed chassis. So I'm liking the plan so far for the drive shaft, the center shaft. Of course, we got to model a pinion gear to match our drive gear. For the motor, as far as a motor mount, I'm just going to have it either make some holes somewhere in the chassis or glue it to the chassis. I'm not going to bother to design it so it'll line up with some of the holes I have in the chassis currently, just for the sake of simplicity. I'm just gonna design something that will support it, screw in from the front, have something it'll sit on, and then just either screw it or glue it to the chassis. Super simple. So I do need to measure the distance from one socket to the other. That kind of needs to be accurate. So, because I'm not gonna make the drive shaft, again, for the sake of simplicity. Oh, is this gonna reach? Okay, turns out I actually don't have a great way to measure that, so I'm gonna see if I can find the files for this and just bring it up in CAD and get an exact measurement that way. So yeah, I've got a plan. I've got what I think is a pretty good idea. We're gonna see how it works, and I think that's all I need. I think it's time to go over and do some modeling. Now with the brainstorming complete, it's time to enter Autodesk Fusion 360 and turn those ideas into 3D models. I was fortunately able to find all of the parts that I needed to assemble a virtual chassis here in CAD, just like what I have sitting on the bench. This made ensuring that the parts will fit much easier. I also modeled the motor I'm using a while back, so I could use that to figure out where it would be best to fit on the chassis. I started by making the center drive shaft, before using the built-in gear generator Fusion 360 offers to make a simple set of spur gears with big, easy to FDM print teeth. As I was starting to say earlier during the brainstorming segment, ensuring that the drive shaft is the exact length I need is important because unlike a crawler drive shaft, for example, there will be no way to adjust the length. I got the gears into position and designed a simple motor mount. Again, having the motor design already made, it makes this very easy. I created a loft to gradually narrow the inner diameter of the hole in the pinion gear. Again, I'm hoping to have a nice snug fit by simply pressing it onto the motor shaft. I made the center shaft pretty thick without going too extreme. I'm hoping it will be solid enough without any kind of reinforcement or a carrier bearing being necessary. I'll be printing the larger drive gear separately. I figured it would make the gear a little easier to print and should be very easy to just slide onto the drive shaft. Here's a look at the finished result. Very simple, but hopefully it works. I printed each part using PLA plastic. Yeah, not the strongest material, but it's cheap and easy to print. We'll see how well it holds up. Okay, so I have the drive shaft halves printed. I've also got the gears printed, the motor, just a few more minutes on that. So pretty excited, it's all looking pretty good. I did get a little bit of lift. It was curling up off the bed a little bit on some areas. Fortunately, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. You know, it's there's definitely some flex there for sure, but I think it might work. Let's see how I did with the length. Looks good. I think I nailed it. And then make sure the gear. So I designed it in a way where it could just slide right over. I figured it would be easier to print it as a separate piece. And yep, fits great. Of course, the gears mesh together very well. Everything looks to be nicely printed, feels nice and solid. So let's see, I think what I need to do is I'm going to run a little bit of super glue to secure the two halves together. I'll also use a little bit of super glue to secure the drive gear onto the drive shaft. And then put it in the car and we'll see how it feels. And I remembered I was thinking to myself just a minute ago, hey, maybe you should try putting on gloves for doing this part, but I'll try not to make a mess here. Well, nope, too late. Yep, oh yeah, all over. Want to make sure it's lined up. I thought about maybe making some holes for guide pins, but I don't know if that'll be necessary. This just fits beautifully, nice and snug. All I really need the glue to do here is just to keep it from sliding off like that. As far as it wanting to rotate, I mean, it's a nice snug fit. Just spreading it on there, nice and nice and thick. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully this works. Got that side in, just a little grease on the ends. And I need to screw this, what do you call it, this assembly, this rear suspension assembly into place. How are we looking so far? Awesome. So far, so good. Center shaft is in place. Spinning just fine. Not super loose or anything. feels good. I think what I'm going to do next, I need something to put back here on the back of the shaft to support it, or something to rest it on, and then I'm going to press fit the pinion gear. I think I'm going to take these bolts out. Oof, that is not good. It's just enlarging the hole on the gear there. For now, well, I guess it's kind of a good thing now that I think about it, because actually I need to put the mount on first. So for the gear to be successful, I'm going to need to print it in something a little harder. It's going to need to be a harder material, because when I'm pressing it onto the shaft, it's just opening up the hole rather than tightly fitting. Perfect. So, how are we going to keep this on and secure? But at least now it's way more serviceable, so let me see. So it's going to need to mount right about like this. Just like that. Gonna secure that to the chassis. So I did make some holes that I can run some screws through to secure it to the chassis. Well, let's do a quick test right now. And oh, I need to hook up a battery. Hold on. And holding the motor in place, it's strong. Looking good. It's got some power. Yeah, definitely gonna want to run some screws through there. I don't know if just gluing it is gonna be sufficient. That also allows it to be removable. All right, here's a little closer look at what we got so far. So I think the next step, what I'm going to do is drill some holes for the screws that'll secure the motor mounts to go through. And then after that, I think I'm just going to put a little bit of shoe goo onto the shaft to help keep the gear secured onto it. The reason I'm going to use shoe goo is it dries into like kind of a rubber-like sort of removable skin, which I figure would be kind of, since this might be kind of a temporary setup, might be kind of nice versus using something like super glue, which might be a pain to clean off if I want to change to a different gear. So I think for now, just using a little shoe goo to help keep it from coming off should work well. Hopefully we don't have the same problem again of the shaft heating up, which I think is part of what caused the issues before. Was the shaft gets hot, it kind of melts or softens the plastic, and then it just spins inside of the gear. So we'll see what happens, but for now, like I said, use a little bit of shoe goo, help keep the gear on, drill some holes for the motor mount, and at that point, it'll be ready for a test drive. everything appears to be working just fine. So, I think what I'm gonna do is put the top support on, and it's 10 o'clock at night and raining outside, but maybe I'll just do a little cruise through the office here just to see how it's working. And then I'm gonna move on to getting the body mounted. So, I'm gonna put the upper support on and let's see how it works. All right. All right, so from just a little bit of driving around the office, it works great. Obviously, I want to take it outside and really give it some throttle, but so far it's looking good. I think what I want to do next is work on the body. Obviously, I got to glue these front magnets back on, glue the magnets for the dash back on. And I also want to put in the lights as well, the light buckets. So I'm going to start by gluing on the magnets. I 3D printed some rear body posts for the back. The old ones broke. It's hard to make the 3D printed body posts really strong. What I did with these was I printed them just like this, horizontally, and then I'll be gluing each half together. Hopefully that makes them a little stronger. I think it'll make them quite a bit stronger versus these, which I printed vertically. And that versus this. Print orientation can make a big difference, so hopefully these hold up much better, but we're gonna find out. Let's do it. So I think I'm just going to use, you can still see the spots where they were before. Glue them back in, try and line it up. Super glue is probably not the best for this, but dries fast, easy to apply, so if they come off again, whatever. Looks like the body mounts survived, fortunately. So I just need to replace the post. Want to figure out how tall the old ones were, so I can cut it to the same length. Looks like I just need to cut a little bit off the top. Yikes. Oh, still got the old stuff down in there. Oh boy. How do I get that out? Oh, come on. Come on. Oh no. I got an idea. Heck yeah. All good. It's on. Nice. Right, so going to be doing a little bit of work on the body. Obviously, the first thing I want to do is wipe away all the dust. All right, car's looking better already. I think the next thing I want to do is reinstall all the lights. As you might recall, I added some lights to this car. However, I never got around to permanently installing them. Also, I didn't have any shrink wrap at the time, so I used, looks like I used some electrical tape, which unfortunately is kind of coming off in a few spots. Okay, so I don't remember exactly where each plugs into. There's a bunch of different slots there. So, trial and error, I guess. Oh, actually, I guess I did label them 1 and 8, maybe. I don't know. That's a 1. Is that an 8? Are they even on there? Oh, okay. Well, let's try it. Okay, yeah, I did label them. Okay, good. Good on me. This is 7. And this one's 1. Cool. I had a little bit of foresight. Give me some credit, guys. Well, let's make sure I didn't speak too soon here. Transmitter on. Car on. Lights. Oh yeah. They are working. Well, this one just went out. Both of them just, oh. Bad connection somewhere. Who would have guessed? We'll put it on the car and if, see whether or not the headlights are working and figure it out if need be. It's not the cleanest setup, but it works. There you go. I think the taillights might even. Yep. Cool. Functional brake lights, I like it. So I think all that's left to do is to glue on two, where's the other, here it is, 2 mud flaps that came off, and then I'll be finished for this evening. It runs, it drives, just have to wait for a good opportunity to take it out and do some driving. So there you go, a little update on the Impreza. Really looking forward to taking this car out and seeing how well it drives. I'll be sure to include that footage in an upcoming video, so be sure to stay tuned. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.